Hellhounds, chase ghosts, coming, sleep, watch out, demons are coming, run, sleep, hide, spirits, ghosts, hide, demons, hellhounds, ghosts, demons are coming, spirits.
Hello, my little hellhounds. Welcome to Home of Scares. If you like the chills running down your spine and to be scared, fueled with anxiety, then join us twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And don't forget to increase your anxiety levels. Just make sure you subscribe. Sleep tight, my hellhounds. Tonight we have subscriber stories. Our stories tonight are submitted by you 130794. The wolf that spared my life. This story happened to me when I was 8 years old. I was spending my winter vacation with my grandparents at their house in the mountain side of my country. My grandparents don't live there anymore, as my grandfather died in 2012 and my grandmother moved closer to us in our city. She is 85 now. When I was 8, my mum moved to Atlanta, USA for a while, leaving me and my father home. My father had 2 jobs and no time to raise me, so I would often stay at one of my grandparents' houses, either her parents or his parents. The house at the mountainside was my grandparents' on my dad's side. We still own it. The house is officially 135 years old now, and is one, if not the oldest and best preserved houses in that area. It caught both world wars and the Balkanic War. I still find bullets in under the ground. Each house was placed linear in the sense that you had a road, and on each side of the road there would be houses separated from each other by other smaller streets that would head towards a river and a train bridge. I would often go across the bridge and the river as a child, but that is a story for another time. One night at 7 or 8 p.m, I recall sneaking out of our garden and into the small street, and on my way to this river and train bridge. Our house was on a hill and the river was downhill. Since it was winter, it was pretty dark outside, but I loved exploring the wooded area which the bridge was near, and having to reach it I would go down the hill and face a fence with a gate that would indicate the houses have ended and the forest is near. I opened the gate. It was always open because someone broke the lock a long time ago and no one bothered to fix it, and step inside. I had my grandparents' dog with me. His name was Picky, a very colourful collie by my side. Picky was the kind of dog that would follow me anywhere. If I left the garden, even if I locked him in, he would dig under the fence and come after me. He would always defend me. As we enter the gate, I hear Picky growling and staring into the woods at seemingly nothing. I see his back fur raising as cats do when they want to attack, and his fangs exposed. I look in the direction his eyes are locked and see a huge wolf emerge from behind the trees and towards me with gracious but menacing steps. I hear the snow crack under Picky's paws as he is slowly backing down and slightly leaving his ears behind. At first, I don't understand why, but when I look at the wolf that has now stopped a few feet away from me, locking eyes with me, I notice a wolf cub come out from behind the wolf's legs. I am now scared. I watched enough National Geographic to know that mother wolves are savages when they have cubs, especially if they feel threatened by other animals or people. And here I am, a human child with a growling collie at her and her cub. The snow was big and I was winter dressed. I knew I couldn't run faster than a wolf. If she lunged at me, I would be done for. I started crying due to mixed reasons. First was, of course, because I was scared, but I would also look at the beautiful wolf cub clinging at his mother's legs and think about my own mother and feel so vulnerable and motherless in the moment. Picky is now behind me, moving slowly away from me, sobbing as if trying to convince me to run with him, but I can't. I locked my eyes with that wolf the entire time. She was there because I felt that the moment I turn my back away or break the eye contact, she will jump at me to protect her baby. I felt icy tears trickle down my cheeks as I started talking to that deadly yet beautiful creature. This may seem nuts to some, but I was 8 and missed my mother and was afraid, said to the wolf on a calm, childlike voice, but obviously affected by crying. to please don't hurt me. I kept saying things like that for what felt like an eternity. Mother Wolf never breaking eye contact, staring me right into my soul with her yellow eyes. This encounter lasted maybe 5 to 10 minutes tops, but it felt much longer. She looked at her cub, who is now agitated, looks at me one more time and turns around slowly, vanishing into the woods with her baby. My feet unlock. Adrenaline is slowly leaving my body, and I break into tears, wiping my eyes and thanking God I was not hurt. I head back home, and as soon as I hold the gate to exit, I hear the most beautiful sound ever, for the first time in reality and not just on National Geographic. The wolf howl. It gave me goosebumps, and it does ever since whenever I hear a wolf howl. Although this experience was scary and can count as a possible near-death experience, it did change my thoughts on wolves. I now respect and worship them. I am in love with their howls, and I simply admire them to my core. That wolf could have easily bitten me or badly damaged me. Maybe she didn't because of her cub or my dog, or maybe somehow she understood me. I don't know. I've gotten myself a tattoo of that wolf's expression as a reminder of her icy cold stare, and how a deadly yet beautiful creature spared my life when I was only a child wandering the woods brainlessly. Ever since, the wolf has become my spirit animal. The Cat Whisperer. This is a story about a neighbour I had growing up. My name or town is not relevant for the story. I remember I was 6 years old when I first met her, but first, an important detail that will make sense later in the story. I had a Norwegian forest cat growing up, which was taught to walk on a leash like a dog. Her name was Fifi. I would occasionally take Fifi outside in the garden to sniff around and play with insects or look at birds. Fifi was a well-behaved and composed cat. One time I got approached by a relatively old lady. She looked around 50 or 60 years old, holding a bag and seemingly talking to herself. She notices me, greets me with a hello and a big smile, and approaches me. "Oh my, what a beautiful cat you have," she says, then asks me her age, her name, her weight, her manners. You know, normal questions someone asks when seeing a pet. I was very happy of Fifi, so I would always brag about how clean she is and so on. The old woman, who I shall call Sandra, had a huge love for cats. Later on, I would notice that she would come to the garden every day, at least twice a day, with cat food. Up to the day I met her, I never saw stray cats around my block, but whenever Sandra would come and call for them, about 8 to 10 cats would appear from nowhere, meow loudly, and run towards her, greeting her. To me, that was the meaning of happiness at the age of 6. I loved cats, and being around so many and allowed to pet them and feed them, that was all I wanted to do. But for some reason, Sandra would only allow me to be around her when she would call the cats. Now, those cats weren't indoor cats. No one owned them, but they took a liking to Sandra, and Sandra alone. They would all hiss at me or anyone else, would run away or even scratch you if cornered. Sandra was a pretty odd lady. She didn't have children of her own, she wasn't married, didn't have relatives taking care of her, and I have never seen other people her age spend time in her company. All my childhood, she was Sandra, the crazy cat lady. I always thought people were just being rude for no reason. My parents had to give my cat Fifi to another family because my mother developed an allergy to cat fur. It was heartbreaking for me because Fifi was my first and only pet. They did it all in secrecy. I didn't even know to whom they gave her, and only knew that it was some family in the neighbourhood. I made amends with the idea and slowly forgotten about Fifi until one day when I was 13 and coming home from school. My grandmother died the day before, and my mum was sending packages to all of our neighbours. It's a cultural tradition when someone dies to do so. One of the deliveries I had to make was at Sandra's house, a place I've never been to before. I knock at the door and could hear meows from inside the house, indicating that she owned cats too, not just feeding strays. She answers with a startled look on her face and asks me what it is. I tell her my mum sent me with a package and why. She doesn't express her condolences as most people would normally do, but instead invites me inside to a glass of lemonade she specifically asked me not to touch or talk to any of her cats, as they talk back and aren't polite. As soon as I enter the house, I could smell the stench coming from probably her 20 or so cats that she had. The house was dirty, the light was dim, there was cat kibble all over the place, fur all over the furniture, was all damaged by her cats. It would have been impolite of me to mention it, so I haven't. Sandra comes in the living room with 2 glasses of lemonade, handing me one and inviting me to sit down. I did that with a hustle because I had to move at least 3 cats, a gesture she did not take kindly on. She went on talking about how people need to learn how to treat cats, not animals in general, just cats, with the respect they deserve. Talked about how all her cats are the living embodiment of humanity, something I could not understand at the time. She asked how Fifi was, to which I replied with the truth. Fifi was not with us anymore. The moment I finished saying that, Sandra drops her lemonade glass and looks at me with a furious expression. She then says, "How could you be so naive and stupid to let them do that? Wasn't she a living creature of God? Don't you think she had a spirit? Where exactly did you throw her?" Her reaction scared me. I knew she was a cat fanatic, but to talk to a small kid like that, especially when mourning because of a cat, seemed too much. Sandra wouldn't have it. She stood up, stepping barefooted in the shattered pieces of glass, grabbed my wrist and pulled me out of her house, saying, "Only when you find their purity, their pain, their regrets, should you ever cross paths with me again." I haven't seen Sandra ever since, but I did get to hear her story from her neighbour, which would constantly complain about the smell on their floor. She told me that Sandra suffered from schizophrenia and that she did have a daughter when she was younger, but because of her condition and depression that began after her birth, gave her to a foster home without the husband knowing at the time. This made links unrepairable between them, and he left Sandra. That was when she started collecting cats. She would worship them because she genuinely believed 2 things. Firstly, she believed that cats were either the reincarnation of her still living daughter and husband. Secondly, she thought that cats in general are the embodiment of human souls. Her first 2 cats were named after her daughter and husband, with whom she never kept in touch. Sandra would sleep with her felines, bathe with them, and other less Christian things. All of her inside cats were kittens of the first 2. She transformed her home into a cat sanctuary, because she thought they were people trapped in feline bodies, because they have sinned in life and needed to repent. She considered herself a cat whisperer because only she could hear them talk as humans do, demanding her things from taking in more cats to pushing away real people, or even harm those who wouldn't respect cats. She has been institutionalized, but released every time. Thinking of her, I can still vividly remember her anger and resentment towards me and my family about my cat's adoption, how she bled from her feet that day and still kept her composure, genuinely believing that cats were vessels of the human soul. She still lives there, locked in her sanctuary, with the only living creatures that she deemed worthy of respect and love. The Baby Snatcher. This story happened a while back when I used to work as a front desk receptionist for a private hospital. That implied people coming straight to me when they entered the building. I will make this one short because the event itself happened very fast, a matter of minutes, but it was scary to both me and the mother involved. I remember one day a mother came to the hospital with her baby in the stroller. I love babies, so while her mother would sign up the papers she needed for her doctor's appointment, I would make faces and sounds for the baby to behave and laugh. This made the mother smile at me. After about 3 to 5 minutes, the mother asks me if it would be possible for me to keep an eye on her baby, as she needed to go to the bathroom real quick. I agreed, pulling the stroller inside my booth, near the door of the booth, so Mama can take it out easily. I did this for 2 reasons. 1, to have the baby safe. 2, so I could also do my work, as my boss wouldn't take kindly on us slacking off work, no matter the reasons. This baby was beautiful. It was a gorgeous baby boy, blue eyes, red hair and freckles, the kind of baby you see on commercials. As soon as Mama goes to the bathroom and I pull the baby inside my booth, another woman comes in with no appointment. She mumbles about wanting to make one, asks a lot of questions about the hospital, the services, anything you could easily find on the internet. I play professional and give her all the information she needed. She sees some merchandise in my booth with the hospital logo, flyers, pens, maps, caps, etc. And she asks me if she could have any. I say sure and turn my back at her to grab the stuff. When I turn back at her to give her the merchandise, I see that she came around my booth at the doorway, snatched the baby and was now walking in front of my booth, not fast, trying to maybe not look suspicious. I see that immediately, scream for the guard as I climb on my booth and lunge at her, grabbing her to immobilize. The security guard was not far away, but in his defense, he was on the other side of the building when the baby's mother came in, so he didn't know who she looked like. He grabs the baby, hands him to me, picks up the woman who is now screaming out of her lungs, "He's my baby, she stole my baby," towards me, also spitting at the security guard. Lucky enough, the baby mama comes out of the bathroom, only to see her baby outside his stroller, crying in my arms, and a crazy woman shouting how the baby is hers. The mother runs to me, takes her baby back with tears in her eyes, asking what happened and thanking both me and the guard for saving her baby. The police were called. They came and took the woman in, but to be quite honest, I think they took her to a mental hospital, because after being caught, the woman would make no sense, was very aggressive, and would try to hurt anyone who touched her. I am happy the security guard was there. If it weren't for him, I couldn't have been able to take back the baby from this baby snatcher. To all the mamas out there, please never leave your babies unsupervised, even if the worker is willing to help and loves babies. You never know what happens. And to the lady snatching babies and claiming them to be hers, I hope we never meet again. How I ended up feeling like the angel of death. I am going to incorporate 3 stories into one. All the 3 stories are real stories. Please bear with me. It will be a long post, so if you don't want to read it, just pass by. 2 years ago, in 2017, I remember it was either the 26th or the 27th of December, right after Christmas. I was taking the subway to go home from my boyfriend's house to my parents' house. I live in Bucharest, Romania. The subway was full, but I did manage to find a free chair, so I sit down. The stops go by one, relatively fast, reaching the stop I needed. I was sitting between 2 people, a man and a woman, not related to each other. The woman was a petite blonde girl with blue eyes and glasses, reading something in the phone, and sitting on my right, she looked as if she was somewhere between 20 and 30 years old. On my left, there was a big, I could say overweight man. I couldn't tell how old he was. To me, he seemed as if he was above 60 years old, but overweight people tend to leave that impression. As I sit there listening to music, I feel a slight pressure on my left shoulder, growing and growing. I do not move my head, but check with my peripheral vision to see the man placing his head slowly on my shoulder. I do not make a fuss about it, as I don't really mind if someone falls on you for being tired. I would wake them up if I needed to stand, but all in all, it really does not bother me that much. Many of my friends find this really weird of me, but I think it's just being understanding of someone's level of exhaustion. A few minutes pass by. I feel the man's head getting harder and harder to sustain on my shoulders, taking me and my own body weight to hold him. While having headphones in my ears, I look at the people in front of me, not hearing what they say, but watching their terrified expressions on their faces, some of them covering their mouths, some of them making the cross sign, some of them looking panicked or sobbing, and all of them looking at me. I take my headphones off, I look at them, I ask what's wrong, and at the same time I glance at the man sleeping on my shoulder, only to see a white and purple face staring into my soul, with lifeless eyes and mouth wide open. My heart drops into my stomach as I realized the man never fell asleep on my shoulder. He fell dead instantly on me with his entire body weight. I feel sick instantly and I freak out internally. I put my hand on his neck to feel an extremely faint pulse, but still rushing through his body. I look around and scream, "He's not dead. Someone help me turn him on his back fast." As soon as I say that, two men run to me and pull him off his chair and place him on the subway floor. Everyone moving around, forming a circle around me and him. Thank God I know CPR, I thought to myself, hoping with all my heart to keep the heartbeat still beating until the paramedics arrive. People were all calling the ambulance. The subway had already stopped for good at that point, realizing what was going on. No one with more body strength than me offered to help me with the CPR procedure. I'm not small either, I'm fairly built, but the entire procedure is painful, tiring, and if you stop for a second, you can lose the pulse. So I stand on top of him, place both my palms on his chest, and begin to count in my mind and push on his chest, alternating with breathing air into his lungs. I have done that for 25 minutes, because that's how long it took the ambulance to arrive there. When they came there, the man still had a pulse. They asked us what happened, what did we do, how did he fall, did he hit himself, stuff like that, and proceeded to give him the care he needed. After the paramedics arrived, I decided to leave as the experts were there, so I did that. The man already looked purple and blue by then. I hoped for the best and prayed to God for him, but God did not listen to my prayers. Later that day, I found out from the news that the man had died not too late from the moment the paramedics arrived. It made me feel so bad knowing I tried my best to keep him alive, but also wondering why did he drop like that as soon as I sat next to him. Story 2, Second Soul. This one is pretty famous in Romania and caused hysteria in my country. It is about the metro murderess. This story is as true as it can be. There are articles about it, and yes, it happened just as I will tell you. This happened again at the subway. For some reason, all the fucked up stuff like this happens in the subway. I wait for my train, not many people around, just a few coming and going as the subways arrive and leave. I was at the very end of the line near the stairs, looking for the subway to come, waiting patiently. Right ahead, maybe like 100 meters away from me, I see in front of the subway pillars a pregnant brunette girl. She was very pregnant. She looked to be around due term. I sometimes find myself looking at pregnant women or parents with their children. I'm a girl, not a creep. I just like children and happy families. Makes me smile. I like to imagine myself as a mother, and that makes me happy. So I look at this woman. I can also hear the subway approaching and the wind blowing her ash dark hair as she looked into her phone, and with her free hand rubbing her baby belly. It made me smile. It made me feel happy for her. I wondered what gender the baby is. I wondered what she would name him. Having thoughts like that, how will the baby look like? Will he or she look like her mum or dad? Innocent stuff like that. But this fantasy image in my mind would be destroyed and chopped into pieces in a second as I see two skinny arms coming from behind the pillars as she was in front of, and pushed the pregnant lady on the train tracks. As soon as the subway exits the tunnel to reach the stop, I freeze with my mind but not my feet. I run for the life of me as I see the woman wobbling dizzy, holding her belly, throwing her purse back up and trying to climb back up. She screams, "Someone please help me, the train is coming, I can't climb up, please, I'm pregnant, please." As I run towards her, I scream from the bottom of my lungs, "Run inside the tunnel, run inside the tunnel, do it now, you must do it now, run inside the tunnel." When I said run inside the tunnel, I meant for her to run in the direction the subway was going, so that she would hide inside the tunnel, because the train would have stopped and not harm her. But that meant 100 meters for her to run, pregnant and injured. Very fast, I reach her the moment the subway just completely crushed her. I heard the bones crack, the blood, the horror. I did not have the stomach to approach to see the damage that has been done by those skinny arms. that ended her life. I just couldn't erase the image of a happy young-to-be mother rubbing her baby belly, probably talking with her husband on the phone, to the lifeless body pushed to death way too soon. People were shocked, everyone was screaming, and the murderer was chased down but couldn't be caught until later that night. She was a psychotic woman around 40 to 50 years old that claimed to have had a bad day, lost her job. The woman looked like her last boss that kicked her out, and she was nervous. What was sickening was the explanation she gave the police for leaving the murder scene. She said she was looking for cheap pants, so she couldn't be bothered to stay there longer. The next day, the police finds out the woman had tried to kill someone before this lady, another girl, similar in height and face to the one she killed. There are recordings of her pushing the first lady and recordings of her attempting 3 times in a row to push a girl on the train tracks. Fortunately, this girl was an athlete and managed to escape from her claws of death. She testified against her and she's been imprisoned for life. I haven't searched on her latest status since she's been convicted, so I hope she dies in there. Story 3, Third Soul. Considering today it's 31st of July and this happened on the 25th of July, this one is as fresh as it can be and equally traumatizing as the first 2. I live with my fiance now. He's a nurse at the ICU, and when he has day shifts I would wake up earlier than usual and go with him, even if it meant I would be an hour earlier for work, earlier than anyone. He calls an Uber and leaves me at the subway as he goes to work with the Uber. I take the subway from the Union Square in Bucharest at 7 AM. Every seat is taken, so I stand up, but pick the first set of doors right behind the conductor's room and just glance into my phone like a zombie listening to music. The first stop comes. It's called Izvor. It means river. At 7:05, I think to myself, I better check out and see which stop it is, because on the same line 2 trains circulate but go different directions. I wanted to make sure I took the right one by seeing the first stop. The moment I do that, I see the train exiting a tunnel and sort of slowing down. Not much, you could just feel the brakes being triggered. As soon as I see the light from outside the tunnel, I look outside the window doors, looking for the sign indicating which stop it is. When I did that, I saw the shadow of a person fly on the tracks. All I could see was a faint silhouette of a person and a bit of blue. Right then, I feel under my feet how the subway would crack something. I felt the subway floor make a small bump. I felt sick. I thought of the worst. I am a genuine animal lover and would do anything for them, but that moment I prayed to be an animal as I thought of the utter worst case scenario. All the doors are now locked, the only door that would open later being the one that I stand at. the train conductor goes on air and tells us, due to reasons objective to subway company name, the line from A to B will be closed. Please evacuate the train and change the lines. Everyone was furious, since everyone was going to work, and Romanians do not like to be scolded for being late or stuck in traffic in general. Right before opening my door, I managed to see the saddest scene ever unfold in front of my eyes. Most people don't ever take into consideration how train conductors feel in these situations. I know for sure I have changed my views on this matter. The train conductor goes outside his chamber, looked under his train, and put both hands on his head, grabbed his hair, almost pulling it off, and proceeded to fist punch his own head with both fists for 5 or 6 times. With tears in his eyes, he was saying, not too loud, but loud enough for me to hear it, "Why, brother, why? Why did you do it, man? How could you do this?" At that moment I understand. There was no chance to see an animal on the tracks, but a person, a man. We are evacuated by the police that arrive in 5 minutes, followed by the paramedics, firefighters and subway officials. Everyone goes on the other line on the other side. Some leave, some stay. Those who stayed wanted to know what happened, because, unlike me, they didn't catch the moment the man decided to end his life like I did. I see people crouch down trying to look under the train, some using their phones to film, take photos, some using flashlights. It made me sick, but I understood. There are some work bosses who don't care for shit. If something like this, being stuck or late due to this in the subway, and will punish you. They only filmed or took pics for proof of the incident. I go there too, somehow still hoping that what I saw was not human. I crouched down with my eyes closed, holding my breath and then opening them. I see legs. I immediately started crying. I do not know why this one death marked me so bad, because I caught the moment someone on his own commits suicide in front of my eyes. The firefighters put the flashlight on him, and at that moment I see all. I see his blue shirt, blue jeans, white sneakers. I see his grey hair and the beginning of baldness. I cry, holding a hand on my mouth, trying to hold the emotions in and pray for him. I could only think how this man was someone's father or grandfather. I don't see blood. I couldn't tell if he's been cut in half by the train. I didn't stay long to find out. The image of his lifeless body will haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. In fact, all these 3 victims, the man that died on my shoulder, the pregnant lady who's been murdered, the second I put my eyes on her to admire her, and the man that committed suicide by jumping in front of the train I was in, making me his direct and only witness of the act. their faces will forever stay with me in a way not even their families will ever wish to know. These 3 secluded cases made me feel like the angel of death for them. All happened when I was there. All happened as soon as I looked at or after them. I know it's not my fault, but I am afraid to use the subway. You never know who will die next and how. Home invaders taken by surprise. This story happened when I was 12 years old. I'm a female and 25. The story I'm about to tell you, it might not be scary to most, but for me and my parents it was. I remember it was a Saturday night around 9 or 10 p.m. during summertime. I owned one dog at the time. His name is Benny. My parents decided that night that they feel like going for a walk around the block, walking Benny, and asked me whether I want to join them. I said no because I wanted to play PWI on my PC, Perfect World International. My parents were okay with leaving me alone, since the walk wouldn't take longer than 30 minutes tops. As my parents would get dressed to leave the house, I logged in PWI and looked around in my guild and global chat to see if anyone was on. For some reason no one was, so I decided to join my parents. I get dressed, I put Benny on his leash and we all leave. I'd like to mention that I live in an apartment building that had 10 floors and we lived on the very first floor. Not sure how to explain, but you have the basement of the building, then the first row of apartments. Basically you enter the building and already are facing apartments. I lived in the very first one. I remember always hating that because whoever would pass by our door, we would hear them at any time of the day or night. Whoever was lurking at night, we would hear them. It was somewhat eerie to live on floor 0. Anyway, we leave the house. My dad closes the door. We had 3 keyholes and a steel bar that would block the door from the inside. The bar covered half of the door. Precautions were my father's obsession. We exit the building and enjoy our walk. After 15 minutes, we realize the wind has changed from warm summer wind to incoming storm wind. My mum makes the call to go back home, as Benny already did all his duties. So we all return. We open the building door, climb the 5 stairs to our door and attempt to open it. And my father does the following: unlocks the first 3 locks and then attempts to unlock the metal bar that holds the door locked. At that moment my father pauses, turns around at us with the most serious face I've ever seen on him, and whispers to us to call the police and ring the neighbour's door. My mum goes to the second apartment, and the neighbour, who I will call Ted, comes out asking my father what happened. My dad whispered to him, covering the see-through hole of the door, "Someone is in our house. He or they are holding the door. Please stay here with my family and attempt to open it. I will be back." After saying that, I see my father rush all by himself around the building in the dark. I say dark because we didn't have a street light on the side of our apartment facing the block garden. My dad disappears in the darkness. I go outside too, not following him too much, but only to hear if he's in trouble. He's my dad, don't judge me. As soon as I get out, I hear him shout, "Hey, you, come back. Who the hell do you think you are?" I called the police. At the same time, I hear him shout. I look at Ted, who manages to open the door and enter the house. I go after them and enter my house. It no longer felt like my house. In just 15 minutes while we were walking, the home invaders made a complete mess of our house. All our shelves and wardrobes were pulled out, our clothes scattered all over the house. Benny's dry food was all over the floor, indicating they must have tripped in his bowls, probably not knowing we owned a dog. But what scared me the most was how organised they were. I say that because after seeing the disaster that they left behind, we knew it was impossible for just one person to hold the door still and organise what they want to take from them. I say organised because the thieves put in our living room, all packed and ready, what they wanted but couldn't steal. On the couch they placed our laptops, one of our TVs, my father's collection of coins, our phones, chargers, wallets, and even my father's camera. He's a photographer, and that week he had to attend a wedding. They didn't have enough time to steal all of that, so they just settled with some of my mom's jewellery and some pocket money. After seeing this in my silly child mind, I rushed to my room to check my piggy bank. I always saved up money from whatever chores I did. It wasn't much, but it was my work and savings, and at that time I thought they stole it too. When I enter my room, I see the metal bars covering my windows are cut open and my window broken. This is how they entered, through my room. My room is the only room facing the side of the building and the one most secluded from view. Needless to say, I never felt safe in my own room, in which I had to live for the next 10 years of my life, until I moved in with my fiancée. The police arrive. They start throwing white dust. I have no idea what that is still. All over our house to find fingerprints. They take pictures, take our statements, analyse the room and window. They were unable to catch the home invaders, but were able to tell us that this invasion was not the only one in our neighbourhood. During that month, another 4 houses were broken into, one of them being the home of a cop, not related with the cops at our home. They told us that the invaders analysed their victims, learned their schedule, even knew where the children's rooms were, as they seemed to be entering the houses through the children's windows. All the families affected by them had children. They did not expect us to be back that soon and panicked. Hence one of them was holding the door with his body so that the others could flee. The person after which my dad was shouting was probably the one holding the door and escaping last through my broken window. I don't know what could have happened if I didn't change my mind and give up on raiding for gears in PWI. I would probably have come face to face with these invaders. I am happy I didn't, and I hope to God I never ever meet with them. Period. Thank you to you for submitting these stories for tonight's edition. Now remember, my little hellhounds, if you want more content like this, then don't forget to subscribe. Good night, hellhounds.